Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Travel Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Stacey.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah.
And today we are talking about Kiribat, even though it looks like Kirbati.
Did you find out why T-I is pronounced S?
I do not know why T-I is pronounced S. I know why the place is called Kiribat, but this is one of those who decided that's how you should write that sound sort of things that I like to rant about.
Yeah.
Because just...
I mean, if I understood the rationale behind those letters making that sound, it might make more sense, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can't quite figure... Because I'm assuming because Kiribat comes from the native people's pronunciation of Gilberts, which I can kind of get.
Okay.
Kiribat, Gilberts. The same way that Kirimas, even though it looks like Kirbati, Kirimas is Christmas. So you can kind of
see that.
Start to hear it. That I get. Fine. That's how you pronounce Gilberts, and these were called the Gilbert Islands. Cool. How you decided that what totally looks like it should be Kirbati, because I'm pretty sure the I is pronounced I because of Gilberts. What?
Yeah, interesting.
It would be hard for me, so this would not pass at all, but I kind of just want to force everyone to use like a phonetic alphabet. Everything must be written literally phonetically, so we don't have this whole how do you pronounce enter thing here.
Then people would be like, yes, but I mean, because cultures and language are so diverse, there'd still be people arguing over what phonetic sounds
right
are.
How do you pronounce, all the things we differ from the British in.
Right.
Garage, privacy.
Yeah.
That whole, yeah. But I mean, at least then you could avoid like the whole thing I have with my name of how do you spell your name. It's like, it's just Stacey. It's the sounds. It's Stacey. Don't have to decide whether it's a Y or an I or an IE or an EY or something. I once had a friend whose name was Ashley, but it was spelled ASHLEIGH.
Right. The one that I always laugh at is Amy, spelled AIMEE. I mean, it's
that's not terrible. I
just laugh because there's so many vowels to that very small, simple word. But
yes,
yeah, Ashley with the I mean, my name has an extra H. Technically, I think it looks naked without the H, but the H is not necessary.
Yeah, just language. This was not meant to be a language rant, but just. It took me so long to train myself to say Kiribat while looking this up, because in my head it was always Kirbati,
right.
Because that's what it looks like.
Because we're taught to sound things out.
But the place is pronounced Kiribat. It is.
And we do apologize to people who, if you actually live there and you're listening to this podcast, we apologize. We're not mocking your name or.
We are annoyed with the way that languages are written into Latin letters and who decided on that stupid system. So, probably someone you've never met and who's been dead for centuries.
Right.
My anger has purpose.
If it was somehow you, well, we are mad at you.
I am actually, I feel somewhat sorry for the people of Kiribat, because they are likely to be the first country that just sort of doesn't exist anymore. Because they are...
That's terrible.
They are comprised of 32 atolls?
Yeah.
I always read it as atolls, but again, this is one of those, I read it and then...
but I feel like I've heard it pronounced atolls, and then I'm like, but is that the way the British pronounce it? Or is that the way we... Or maybe... I don't know. ATOLLS 72 L's apparently. ATOLLS.
32 really small islands and reef islands, and one raised coral island, 21 of which are inhabited, and they have a total land area of about 310 square miles, which is dispersed over an area of about 1.3 million square miles. So they actually have the biggest water to land ratio in the world.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But they're expected, that was cool, but now this is not, expected to be the first country to lose all its land territory to global warming.
Oh, man.
Because they're a bunch of different types of islands.
Right.
And as we go and the oceans rise. So there's a number of things they've done with this, and this is still a whole controversial thing of whether you can even have refugee status if your country ceases to be land.
Man.
But they bought land in I cannot remember now which nearby country it is for the people to try and to go there.
And isn't that a kind of an odd concept? I mean, I know it's happened.
Land, yeah.
I know it's happened in history, where you get land or, by whatever means, but it just seems strange in the modern culture to move your country to a different location.
Yes.
Although, please do, because we don't want you to just sink into the ocean.
Yes. So they're also, very interestingly, they're the only country that is situated within all 4 hemispheres. And they're right on the date line, to the point that actually prior to the mid-90s, they were in 2 different days in the country, because one of the islands was behind. So the date line.
Right.
You have to sort of visualize it as an imaginary line we drew somewhere down, and it's not even one set longitude. It sort of circles around things. To say this is where the next day starts, so that, we're in California, we'll still be on whatever day, whereas in Asia, they're already in the next day. So you always see that, if you watch world things around New Year's Eve, it's hey, congrats, it's the New Year. It's no, it's not. It's still morning on New Year's Eve here. What are you talking about?
On a similar note, my one niece was born in China and adopted, and my mom still insists that what we call her gotcha day is a different date, because it was June 18th here.
Right.
Or July 18th here, but July 19th, or whichever way that goes.
Right.
I think I got it right. And she's like, no, it's July 18th. I'm like, Mom, you don't get to just pick, because you were... I think her parents get to decide on that one. But yeah, time zones, they're tricky.
Yes. So first they were on actually 2 different time zones, and then they switched it so that they'd all be on the same day. And the way they did that was they decided someday to do that, and basically everyone just kind of skipped that day. That they didn't exist for them, and we're all now on the next day.
Can you imagine, you live here and a block over is a different time zone, and so you're like, I'm going to the store. Oh, crap, what day is it?
Right, well, and it throws me off, because I think there are some states that do that with global warming, daylight savings, where...
They don't, Arizona doesn't go on...
Well, no, I mean, within the state, it's or time zones, I guess, where it's a different time zone within the state. All of California is one time zone. So whatever time it is where I live is the same as whatever time it is in that very far southeast corner that touches Arizona and Mexico. We all have the same time zone. But I believe there are some states where the time zones sort of split. So it's hey, I live in the eastern state and it's, 6. Well, I live in the western part and it's only 5. So you're not closed yet. What?
Wait a minute.
How do you even... But so anyways, they changed it, and they actually, their easternmost, now I have to visualize this, island became the first place on Earth to enter the new millennium when the millennium happened. So it's actually also sometimes called Millennium Island.
Oh, okay.
And there's a number of them, they sort of set into a different few sections, because again, this is biggest water to land ratio in the world. This is a bunch of islands spread out over a bunch of water.
Right.
That is all still one country, which I cannot imagine, because California, totally not that at all. Completely the opposite. Lots of land on lots of land.
Lots of land.
It is. I mean, I know we've got some islands, but I don't actually know them. We're lots of land. We have a lot of land in California.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Again, grew up in Montana. That's a landlocked state, so I really do
have
lots of land on lots of land.
Yeah, we actually have a coastline, so
Fine. We have a lake. We have more than one lake, but Flathead Lake, biggest lake in the western part of the... Yeah, anyway.
our strange little things to be proud of in our states. Just okay.
Moving on. Anyway.
We're off it. So Kiribati, like a number of places in Oceania.
Oceania? No.
But it has the words. Language people, we need to have a talk.
I'm looking it up.
So anyways, like a number of countries in that area, history of colonialism became independent from the United Kingdom in 1979, which maybe it's just because we're American. It always throws me off to hear of countries that became independent, like in my family members' lifetimes.
In my lifetime. That's
pretty,
like, yeah.
Like, but, okay. I get that happened and still happens, but wow, it throws me off.
Yeah.
But permanent population of just over 110,000.
Wow.
And I know there are smaller countries, but I'm like, that's my city. I'm pretty sure my zip code has more people than that. Like,
yeah,
and if not my zip code, definitely like the major area nearby. It's just like, oh, wow. But the locals are known as, I'm going to pronounce this as Kiribati. Okay. It looks like Kirbati, like I-Kirbati.
Right.
But since Kirbati is pronounced Kiribati. Kiribati?
Yeah.
I'm not
Again,
quite sure.
We apologize to the people of Kiribati.
Yes. But the name Kiribati was adopted at independence because it's the local pronunciation of Gilbert's, and they were sort of acknowledging their history, that this was a set of islands that had, come through colonialism, but rather than calling it the original native name, which did not encompass all, or I believe rather than calling it Gilbert's, like the English word, one of the two, which did not encompass all the islands that would go on to be part of Kiribati, they chose to say Kiribati, and this is including everyone who was not even historically included.
Oh, okay. So Gilbert, I assume, was some sort of, he
was a British explorer,
okay,
and the islands were named
quote
after
unquote
him.
Discovered
yes, and the same way the Sandwich Islands, which are not named after the food, were actually named after a person. There was a Earl of Sandwich.
Yeah.
That's where yeah. So yes, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will talk about how to explore Kiribati, if that is how you pronounce it. So stay tuned.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast. Today we're talking about Kiribati. And part of what interests me about Kiribati is the whole country will literally not exist at possibly some point in my life, maybe. They're planning for it, but it's not like that we all have to leave right now.
Right.
Sort of
but
danger.
That's definitely a timing issue. When do you... Yeah, some people would have to leave sooner, obviously, but
right,
do you all leave at the same time, or do you leave in waves, or how does that work?
And what do you do with the people who don't want to leave? Because there's always some of those.
There's always that person.
It's like those people who are like, I'm not leaving. It's like, okay, but it's a hurricane. Right. Hurricane what? Nope. I'm like,
there was a guy who refused to leave Mount St. Helens when they knew it was going to blow up in 1980.
Yeah, just So then, of course, the question becomes, what happens to the, and I'm still going to pronounce this Kiribati people when there is no longer a Kiribati, and this starts getting into like philosophical things of, are you still whatever when you don't have a country?
Well, I mean, there's people who are
countryless.
Yeah, and then there's, there's people who are biologically one thing, but not,
right.
They don't live in that I don't know.
But I don't know that we've had too many in recent history of memory of like, hey, I totally did have a country yesterday, and now I don't.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you start getting into like World War, whichever, and the redrawing of country lines, but then those are not, I don't have a country, I'm now just something new, not I don't have a country, period. I was one thing yesterday, and now I'm a totally different thing, as opposed to I was one thing, and now I'm...
Well, you could maybe the closest thing would be the Jewish people who, after World War II, now, once again,
Right.
that's a whole thing we're not getting into in politics. But before that, they didn't have a specific country, but 1,000 years. Yeah.
Yes.
I can't speak.
Me neither.
I give up.
So anyways, I would want to go and sort of learn as much as possible about the culture there.
Right.
Because there's just this part of me that's afraid that, like, once you're not in the... Like, obviously, culture can continue without having the country, but it's like, once you're not all in this country, I just fear it won't exist anymore. And they're very interesting because they're actually relatively homogenous of a people, but the background is they believe, were settled by Polynesians or Micronesians. And then other groups came in, but they all intermarried very easily with each other. So it became one homogenous, but not homogenous group of people. One homogenous, heterogeneous group of people, if that makes sense.
Sort of, yeah.
It's like, I'm going to put this in terms of gardening and flowers, even though I don't garden. If, like, you have white roses and red roses and yellow roses, and I'm assuming these roses can blend, so I apologize to gardener people if they can't, and you're like, I'm going to blend all the roses together, and you do, and then you have one bush that's just whatever those colors
Still
together
roses,
would look like.
they're just, okay.
It's clearly from those roses, but it's now a whole new type of rose that is all together and it's not enclaves.
Welcome to Botany with Stacey.
It's not like there's the section where the red roses are, and there's the section where they all just came together to become a new people, not with sort of pockets of immigrants. If that is clearer than my botany lesson, because clearly I am not a gardener. So anyways, the best way they say to do this would be to sort of explore the most outer of the islands of Kiribati, because you can find some people who speak English, particularly in the more populated areas, but you're going to find the more authentic, not as touched culture in the outer-lying areas. And the way the tourism is actually set up there is, do not think you're going into like a 5-star hotel staying, because you're most definitely not.
Right.
This is much more of a roughing it sort of trip if you were to do this, but it's also a very much get to know the real Kiribati sort of trip. When you travel to the outer islands, most of them don't actually have like hotels. So the only places to stay are in, I forget, they're like council houses. They're run by the local council. And that's actually one of the very few ways that council can actually get funds, is by the renting out of these council houses.
Interesting. So 110,000 people for the population, but a very, very, very large area. So what are the most densely populated areas? I'm assuming they don't really have cities as we know them, because 110,000 people could be a city.
Right. No, so there are some islands, because again, of the 32 plus the other one, only 21 are inhabited. The main populated one, I'm going to probably not pronounce properly at all, is Kiribat. I can't pronounce it, but it starts with a T. Let's just go with that. And it's actually to the point where, even though there's only 110,000, the population, so many people go there because of like economic opportunities that they actually try and encourage people to go other places.
Oh. And
like kind of move them to other places so that it's not all descending on this one area.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. So because it's an island country,
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, again, California, land on land. Just, well, I don't quite know how islands work yet. A lot of the daily life revolves around the tide, fishing,
sure,
what have you. So that's where a good number of their income comes from, is either exporting fishing goods or fishing rights, or tourism. But it's still very less on tourism. Like, it's very hard even to get into the country. You'd have to, I think, when I looked it up, it said like go to Fiji and then go from Fiji to there somehow. And traveling around, you want to travel around by plane because it's quicker, but it's somewhat easier to do it by boat because it's an island country. So boats are more...
Right.
There's everywhere, but then you possibly would be spending all day on a boat.
Right. So
but on the one hand...
There's really no airport.
Yeah. Very little. And there's only like the one bank, which is an Australian bank, not even their own. And again, do not go expecting a 5-star luxury, all you can be pampered with trip.
Right.
But if you do go and stay in a council house, the locals are generally very friendly and want to get to know you. If you can find someone who speaks decent English, they're very welcoming and willing to talk to you about things. And it would be a very cool way to get to know the culture firsthand, which I feel, especially for the more touristy places, you can't really do as much. Like, even if you go and you think you're getting a full, authentic, cultural experience, a lot of times those are made for the tourists.
Right.
If you go and see a dancing performance or whatever of the local folk dances, was like, that's made for the tourists. So how much of that is really authentic and how much of that is just, we want you to come because this is part of our economy sort of thing.
Right.
So with Kiribati, it all seems very authentic just because there's not too much else otherwise. Like, it's, especially, they actually are really well known. There was evidently a terrible battle in the area during World War II with the U.S. versus Japan, as Japan was, taking over most of the Pacific. And a lot of things are still left from that. So along with fishing, it's a popular location for shipwreck diving tourism because you can go dive amongst actual war shipwrecks, and you can even see them above the water. These I want to call it just like a smokestack, but that's not what it is. I think they're called pillboxes, but that throws me into a totally different mind of things.
Interesting.
But you can see them sticking out of the water, but then they've got plants growing on it, and it's just almost it doesn't feel quite real in the same way that a lot of places that are ruins, but not 100-year-old ruins, but in this past century ruins. It's but the plants have come back. Is this a movie set? Did someone put all those plants there just to make it look that good? Because that looks very ethereal, and yet I'm having a hard time believing you're real. So yes. And they have their traditional way of life is called, again, with the pronunciation, Kate?
And now I'm trying to look up the pronunciation on the notes, but that involves me scanning the notes quickly.
Yeah. Going off of how, since Kiribati is Kiribati and not Kirbati, Kate or Kate?
Oh, Katei.
Yes, but
Yeah.
eyes are throwing me off since Kirbati.
Right.
Involves a strong sense of personal pride, respect to one another, and consistently open welcome to foreigners. Which I feel, again, you also don't get that authentically in a lot of places.
Right.
That often can feel like a sort of act
Yeah.
or put on by local people to get more tourists to come and spend money. So, yes.
Also, if you know anything about the language that is spoken in this country,
Yes.
I would love to hear about it because that's fascinating. I don't know how things are.
Well, and I mean, only 110,000 people, so...
Yeah.
But still, that's the primary language they speak there, even though some do speak English. And their closest tie-in neighbors are Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, I believe. So, yes, very
Fascinating.
interesting.
I am fascinated. It sounds like a really interesting place, and I'm sad that it's disappearing, but I hope that it gets really well documented and
I hope so.
preserved in some way.
And I also apologize for completely butchering, I'm sure, every single word I said. So, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will have our tip and site for the day. So, stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
Where we are tired.
We are.
You may have noticed that we're just a little loopy. Well, no, we're always a little loopy. We're more loopy than usual today.
Loopier. Yes.
Yes.
So the tip for today, and I might need this not even for like security reasons, but just so I would even remember anything, is to take pictures of your luggage and clothes. Theoretically, the reasoning for this is that if your bag gets lost, this will help you identify it, because it's one of those things of like, especially if you've ever grabbed someone else's bag off like the luggage carousel.
Right.
Be like, oh, I thought that was fine.
Check the tag and make sure it really is yours. I actually have a little bit of experience in this. Not that I took pictures first, but the first time I ever lost my luggage, not lost my luggage, it just didn't make it to the airport, so you have to file the claim, and you know they're like, well, what brand is it? Right. Like it was some sort of random brand, that, because I didn't spend a lot of money on that luggage, but yes, taking a picture, very good idea, because then, especially with camera phones now, it's super easy. You just pull it up and you're like, oh yeah, this is the brand.
But I think it's also helpful to take a picture of your clothing. Yeah. Because then it could be like, oh, hey, me and that other person, because you lost like half a plane's luggage, both have that same brand in that color, in that size. But mine's the one with the whatever. Well, how can you prove that that's your one and not the other one? It's like, well, because mine's the one with the really ugly orange sweater that my aunt gave me for Christmas. Like, whatever.
This would also be helpful if you took pictures for... I mean, not that we want things to go wrong, but should something be stolen, you can be like, yes, I had this and it was stolen and this is what it looks like.
That always, because I, especially when I was going off to school and flew off, I just put like everything in my suitcase and I was like, it's the one I'm checking, so I don't have to worry about it. And then I'd get it and I'd get back to the dorm and I'd open it and there'd be like a note from TSA or whatever. Oh, we opened your suitcase.
Right.
Because, something showed up on the scan and they were like, what is that? And we have to check it, but they have to give you that note so that you're not like, why is all my stuff moved? Who was rifling through my suitcase?
Right.
But then I'm sure that note is also sort of them saying, hey, we didn't steal anything. But then if you are like, wait a minute, I had
something
whatever,
missing, right,
and it's not in here anymore, it helps to have a picture to like back that up.
Right.
Be like, look, this is what it looked like before we went to the airport. This is it all packed. You can see the floor of my hotel room in the back of the picture. Like, where is my enter thing here? What have you? You can't say you never saw this. It was there.
Yeah, this all sounds slightly paranoid when you say take pictures of your stuff before you leave, but it can come in handy for a variety of reasons.
I mean, yeah, more so than anything else when I fly, losing my luggage is one of my main fears, just because, especially if like I'm not flying home. If I'm flying home, I'm a little covered because I've got other stuff at home. But if I'm flying, especially to another country, and you lose I've got like no clothes, and depending on what else was in that suitcase, I've got almost nothing else and no means to go about even getting what have you. And I've had it where if I have to transfer, that's my biggest fear, is like I transfer and my luggage doesn't come with me.
Yeah.
And I'm going off to California and you sent my luggage off to like Wisconsin. And I'm just like,
yeah, I got stranded in Salt Lake once and I was there for 2 days and my luggage went home, but I didn't. And so, it was like one of those things where they did actually put me up 2 nights, which was lovely, but you kind of have to rinse your underwear out in the sink and you don't have any extra, or, I mean, there's just, I should probably plan better with my carry-on, but whatever.
Yes. Well, there is actually a thrift store that sells solely things from lost luggage. unclaimed. I can't remember. It's back east, and I almost want to go there, where they buy from airlines unclaimed luggage after however many weeks, however long they're required to hold it. If no one claims it, they then, I guess, will sell it to get, some of that money back. And there is a thrift store that exists solely to sell that stuff. And some of the stuff they buy it, sight unseen. They don't open the bags. They just buy it, whatever the airline's selling, and then they take it to the thrift store and and I'm just like, some of the stuff that's in a luggage and then B, unclaimed is amazing.
That would be fascinating. Because
it's like beyond just clothes and bags and shoes. There's also like surfboards and antlers. And I'm just like, what are you?
Okay, why are you checking the antlers? I mean, okay, yeah, I can see.
Well, you can't take them on with you.
No, you can't. But I mean, I can see some reasons for this, but why aren't you claiming them? Clearly they were important.
So some of the things that don't go claimed, I'm just like, and I mean, part of it's probably they meant to claim it and just, couldn't find it. I thought my luggage went to A while I went to B, and my luggage actually ended up at F somehow. So that's always how that works. But yeah, it looks fascinating, and I want to go there solely just to, because I wouldn't necessarily want to go to that area normally, but I want to go there solely for that thrift store just to look around at all the random things that people put in their luggage and then somehow don't claim.
That should be an episode, except that should be a travel, like a field trip episode. We should totally go there and then do an episode.
Oh yeah, that would have to be like a video episode.
Yeah.
But yes. So the site for today, and I looked this up, and I'm upset because I believe it did not even exist when I was in college, because it would have been great. One of my main disappointments for college is that because I had 2 majors, I felt really busy, and I had to do all my classes for my majors, and I didn't feel I had time to do study abroad, which I super, super regret. The site is Semester at Sea.
Semester at Sea?
Yes. And it's exactly kind of what it sounds like. You take a semester, but rather than just going to one country, you're on a ship. And this ship travels around
So it's like a cruise, but you're
studying.
Interesting.
Yes. So the program, what have you, is the courses are accredited through Colorado State University.
Okay.
So it's, actually accredited, not just really random, I'm traveling around at sea, but whoever's teaching me. And then I get back to school after the semester or summer, and they're like, yeah, none of those count. This is actually accredited through a named university, so it should count at most colleges and universities. And you travel and take courses both on the ship, but then you also, and it feels almost like field trips. When you get into a port, you also go ashore and have like cultural experiences and learning experiences.
Cool.
And this is like not, because when I first heard of this, I remember hearing about it, I think shortly after I graduated, and I thought it was like a group of like 6 people on one of those really small yachts sailing at sea, and I'm like, nope, not gonna, I am not doing to be out in the middle of the sea on that. Nope, not gonna happen. So this is actually a 7-deck, 590-foot ship, and it looks pretty, like at least I don't even know if you'd call it a lecture hall, but the hall where like the students were all sitting and taking notes during a class actually looked almost like you were on like a luxurious cruise ship. I'm like, that's nice.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the coursework for whichever semester, and they do have fall and summer and I believe spring as well, is actually directly related to the countries on the itinerary. And they specifically, for each semester, I'll call it a semester, pick the professors who best relate to, those courses of what they want to teach depending on where they're going. So I'm
fascinating. I want to be
so annoyed.
Either a student or a teacher on this.
Well, and I believe you can actually do it even if you're not a student. They have a thing on their site about like lifelong learners. But I'm just super frustrated that this was not a thing when I was actually a student. So well, I could have done it.
Guess you could go back to school just so you can be a student and go on a cruise.
No. Yeah, no.
Well, see, if you're not willing to put in the work.
College is hard, and papers and tests and midterms. Like, it seriously felt like midterms started within a month and just went the rest of the semester. And me and my friends were like, why are these called midterms? I have like through all my 4 or 5 classes, I have a midterm like every week almost, it seems. This is not a midterm. This is an almost all term thing.
Oh.
Why do you call these midterms?
Because it's in the middle of the term.
And then continues till the end of the term. Like, I remember I had a midterm,
But a midterm
I think
could be
2
anything
weeks
that's,
before
you know-
my final. That's not midterm.
That's still in the midst of the term.
That's like saying the weekdays are the middle of the week. They're not technically the weekend, so they're the middle of the week.
Sure.
I'm feeling very put out. Sarah's reminding me of all the things I did not get to do in college.
Oh,
It's all Sarah's fault.
it's my fault. It's this site's fault.
I'm going to say it's Sarah's fault.
Fine.
And on that note, we're going to end for today. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Travel Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.